welcome back to Funny Shapes. If you don't know me, I'm your host, Lottie, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about the US Grand Prix and the Mexican Grand Prix. So, I haven't posted an episode since before the break, I believe. Yeah, I don't think I even posted an episode for Singapore. Or maybe I did. I don't remember actually. But I've been swamped with things to do. I've been working. I've been having exams. So it's been hard, but I'm gonna do just compile the US Grand Prix and the Mexican Grand Prix. Because since we're in the middle of back to back races, it's kind of hard to film and edit and just post before the other race weekend starts. So it's kind of hard. I had an exam this week, so it was hard to film just an episode for the US Grand Prix. But yeah, let's get into it. We're gonna start with the US Grand Prix, then we'll move on to the Mexican Grand Prix. So, um, again, as always, I'm gonna start from the beginning of the weekend and just go through everything that happened. Um, so the US Grand Prix was our first race after a month-long break, which is like, okay, we have the summer break, now we have a fall break as well. Which was hard to survive a month without F1, but we did, and we're good. And during the press conference on Thursday, Max said that Oscar shouldn't be a number two driver, which is like, yeah, I agree, 100% agree. But at the same time, is why are you saying that now? You know, why did he like? Why did he need to say that now? Because Oscar is an amazing driver. He's been proving that for the whole 2 years that he's been in F1. Okay? But while in his contract, it may say that it's like, oh, I'm not a number two driver and I don't want to be a number two driver. In every single team, even if you're like, oh, we don't have number two drivers, you have, because it's impossible to choose both drivers in every single race, because you either have to choose one to score more points or one to win the race. And it's like, as much as Oscar is an amazing driver, Lando has been with the team for longer. Lando has been with the team since they were absolute tractors and didn't do absolutely nothing and finished like P18 on the grid. You know? So, when you have a driver that's been with the team for so long and right now is second in the championship and still has a chance to win the championship, it's like, you have to choose that driver, even though you don't want to. Or, like, not you don't want to, but, like, even if you're like, oh, we don't want to choose drivers, you have to choose drivers. And for Oscar's first win, they chose Oscar, even though Lando had more pace than him. But they did choose Oscar, you know? So, it's kind of hard to, like, say that, oh, a driver shouldn't be a number two driver, because sometimes you just have to choose, and that's just obvious that you need to make a choice. So yeah, but then the FIA announced that they will be taking the fastest point after this season, which is like, why? Just why? Because the fastest point is just such a fun thing that the drivers do, because usually, like, 2 laps to the end of the race, a bunch of them go to the pits to, like, see who can get that fastest point. And it's like, why are you taking it? But I think it was because of Singapore, when Danny Rick got the point when he wasn't even in the top 10. And that helped Max in the championship. I think that was, like, what made them make that decision, I believe. But I don't think it's a good decision. Like, I just love that. For example, this weekend, okay, in Mexico, Charles went to the pits because he had an enough gap to go and took the fastest lap from Lando. Like, it's just a fun thing to do and to, like, have that little extra point. So yeah, I don't really understand their reasoning for it, but they've decided, and I don't think they're gonna take it back. But yeah, talking about Danny Rick, I'm actually gonna cry. So we all knew that this was probably coming after Singapore. They were all actually before Singapore even started. They're like, this is gonna be his last race. He's gonna be dropped. And as much as we knew it was coming, it was still hard to believe that it actually happened because it was so sad. Like, I love Danny Rick. He's just such a personality in this sport. Like, I've never known F1 without Danny Rick except last season when he was out for like half a season, but still. He's just a personality in this sport, and now knowing that he probably won't come back, it's kind of hard, because he's such a good driver and he never got his dream. Like, he won A races in his whole career. You know? It's really a sad thing to think about, but I really hope that he can find something to finish his racing career in a good note. Maybe IndyCar, maybe, I don't know, like other categories that he can race in that he would be great in and would show like who Danny Rick is, because I love him. I think he's such a good driver, and I don't think he deserved to be dropped like that. Even though, okay, Liam is amazing. He proved that last year when he replaced Danny Rick when he was injured, and I'm so happy he's back. I love Liam, but it's like, why did you have to drop him? Like, I know it's because you need to like get more points in the constructors and all of that. Like, I know, but why? But yeah, I'm really sad that we don't have Danny Rick anymore, especially because he didn't get to race in Austin. And we all know that Danny Rick in Austin is such an iconic race, and he loves Austin. Dude literally entered the paddock in a horse 2 years ago. He loves Austin. So it was sad that he was dropped right before Austin. Like, it was like right before Austin. Like, if it was like in the middle of the season, it would be like, okay, he's not going to race in Austin. But being like right before Austin, it's kind of heartbreaking. But yeah, we just need to move on, to be honest. And Liam is doing amazing. And yeah, so in practice, we had a lot of ballerinas. We had Lewis doing a little spin. Actually, this weekend, we had a lot of ballerinas. And I was like, can you stop spinning around? Like, it was giving me anxiety just to see them spin around constantly. And it's like, even Alex spun during qualifying, during sprint qualifying, actually. But yeah, it was like, stop spinning. That's giving me anxiety. But yeah, Alex spun during SQ1, so we had a sprint weekend. We all know that Austin is a sprint race. And during sprint qualifying, we had, as I said, Alex spinning around. And then we had a shocking surprise, which was Oscar being dropped on SQ1 because of track limits. And you know what? Track limits is probably one of the most frustrating things in this sport. Because in a way, I'm like, okay, track limits make sense because, like, okay, if their four wheels are out of the white line, okay, it doesn't count because if it counted, everyone would do that. But at the same time, there's just racetracks that are so annoying with track limits because they always go out of the white line. It's like Austria is absolutely terrible. We have like the little warnings from track limits over and over and over again. In Austin, the same thing happens. So Oscar got knocked out because his lap was deleted for track limits, which was very sad. Because we all know that Oscar has been doing an amazing season. So it was kind of sad to see him out in SQ1. Then in SQ2, Paris got knocked out. And I'm gonna get more into Paris later, but like Paris is doing an atrocious season. For someone that is in a Red Bull, his season has been absolutely terrifying. He's just not showing absolutely anything. And I've mentioned this in an episode before. It's like, oh, they didn't want to drop him because the American races were coming and he has a lot of fans in Austin and in Mexico because, of course, it's his home race. He just has a lot of fans when they come to America. And it's like, I understand, but he isn't giving absolutely anything to the team, like absolutely anything. And I will get more into it later because we have a few more things to talk about. But yeah, he's not doing great. Then Liam qualified P12, which was not bad for his first race in the car. And then Franco qualified P8, and you know what? I said this probably on the last episode that I posted, maybe the one before that. Not sure. It was when Logan was dropped and they announced that Franco was going to his place. I doubted James Vowell's decision real hard, like real hard. I didn't believe that this was a good choice to take a rookie from F2 and bring him into 10 races in F1. But I take that back because he's been doing absolutely amazing. And it's crazy that he's doing this good since he was a rookie in F2 a few months ago. And right now he's in F1. He's pulling amazing moves. He's defending amazing in a Williams that is not a good car. But I do think that he deserves a full time seat in F1. And usually this doesn't work that well to take a rookie from F2 and just drop him in an F1 car. But it worked for Franco. And I think it was this weekend in Mexico that one of the commentators in F1 TV said that it looks like he was meant to be in an F1 car. And that makes a lot of sense because he just adapted so well to F1 and to race like an F1 car that I'm like, okay. I doubted, but now I'm loving him more and more and more every single weekend. I just love him. He has such a fun personality and I love him. And then Max got the sprint pole, which is like extremely annoying. You know why? It's not like, oh, Red Bull is fast. He got a sprint. He got a pole. No. It's like he complains so much about the sprint races, about the sprint weekends. He complains constantly, yet he gets sprint pole and a pole win every single week. That is a sprint weekend. Yeah. Like, what's up with that? Because he complains so much, and yet he wins every single sprint weekend. Like, dude, if you don't like it, at least don't win it, you know? But he complains so much, and the commentator is like, oh, what did make you like this good and like you're undefeated in sprint weekends this year? And he's like, maybe it's because I don't like it. Dude, shut up, because if you didn't like it you wouldn't be that good at it, you know? But yeah, then we move on to the sprint race in itself, and Max had a pretty good start, and Lando had an amazing start, which he qualified P4 and went up to P2, which was really really good. And then we had some fights. We had Charles and George fighting for a little bit, and then the Ferraris fighting for a little bit, which is like every time I see the Ferraris fighting, I'm like, anxiety through the roof because I get so anxious because I'm like, these motherfuckers are gonna crash and we're gonna get 0 points. But everything was fine. They were fighting, but like not a real like big fight. Then like his race wasn't already bad enough. Oscar got a 5 second penalty for forcing Pierre off the track, which is like poor thing. He wasn't having a great sprint, and he gets a penalty to add to it. So it wasn't a great sprint race for Oscar. Then Franco was defending for his life. My man was defending like crazy. He was defending so Perez wouldn't overtake him, and I loved watching it because it's like that's amazing. That's actually amazing. And yeah, as I said, I've been loving his driving. It's just amazing. Then Carlos took P2 on the last lap. It was amazing. It was so fun to watch. These past few races has been just so fun to watch when it's not just like Max winning every single one of them. And Carlos took P2 on the last lap, and it was so fun. Um, and yeah, then Max won, which is like, again, if you don't like it, don't win it. But yeah, then we move on to race qualifying, and we had lots of laps being deleted for track limits, which is like, again, annoying. But yeah, then we had a little not that pleasant of a surprise, which was Lewis getting knocked out in Q1 at Coda, which is like an amazing circuit for Lewis. And yet, he got knocked out in Q1. It's like, I'm gonna cry, but okay. I'm just gonna hold it in. And then, I was writing everything that I wanted to talk during this episode on my notes app. And I just wrote this down because I need to talk about it. And I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but sometimes I forget that Lance Stroll exists. I don't know if this sounds bad, but it's so genuine that it's like, I just don't remember he exists. And out of nowhere, I see the commentary be like, oh, Stroll is in P whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, that dude exists. And it's like so innocent because I'm like, it's not like I tried to forget him, but he just doesn't show up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he exists. I don't know if that's rude, but it's like, I just forget that he's there. And sometimes I look at the drivers on the side and I'm like, oh, yeah, he's there. Like, he's just there. And I don't want to be mean, but it's just, I just forget he exists. But yeah, I wrote this down and I was like, I need to talk about this because I can't be the only one that sometimes I'm like, oh, he's there, you know? Um, but yeah, it's like so, it's not to be mean, but it just happens, you know? Then we had Pierre in Q3, which is a very fun surprise since the Alpine is an absolute tractor this whole season. But they've been getting better very slowly, but they're getting better. Then Lando got the pole position because George crashed on his final push lap. And it's like, maybe he would have gotten pole position if George hadn't crashed, but maybe not. So, you know, who knows? Who knows? But he got a pole. That's what matters. Actually, it's like I've reached the point when it's like Lando got pole position, and I'm like, yay, he got pole position. But at the same time, I'm like, oh no, that's not good. Because he's getting known for his poor starts from pole position. So, I don't know at what point it's a good thing that Lando gets pole position. So, yeah. Then, moving on to the race. I'm always saying then. That might be a problem, but whatever. George started from the pit lane because they didn't have They had to replace a few things after his crash. And they also didn't have enough parts to put the new update in his car again. And Lewis, being the kind little person that he is, offered to give him the parts of the new update. And Georgia said no, because that would be just weird. But he offered, and just that just shows how Lewis is. And I love that for him. And then my Charlie boy got from P4 to P1 at the first corner while Max and Lando were fighting. And it was amazing. I was jumping around. I was screaming. Actually, I wasn't screaming that much because I was at work and I was trying to control myself so much. But at the same time, I was like, I don't care. I don't give a shit because my man is winning. My man is winning this race. I knew from the moment that Charles got to P1 that he was winning Austin. And I was so happy because, well, it's a Charles win, and I love a Charles win. But yeah, then we had Liam and Fernando fighting on track, and then Fernando was pretty pissed and went and talked to Liam, which is like, okay, but Liam doesn't give a shit. Actually, he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit so much that this weekend in Mexico, he flipped off Paris at his home race. I swear, I love these rookies because they just don't give a shit. They're like, I don't care if you've been here for 10 years, for 20 years. I don't give a shit because I'm here to race. And I love that for them. Actually, love that for them. But yeah, at the beginning of the race, we had Carlos complaining that he was smelling fuel in his car. And I was like, oh, I'm scared. I'm really scared. But then everything was fine. And he just clicked a few buttons on his steering wheel and it got solved. And that's something that still shocks me to my core. Because it's like, the F1 steering wheel in itself shocks me. Because it's like, how can you be smelling fuel inside of your car? And you just click some button in your steering wheel and everything's fine. Like, how is that possible? I actually still haven't understood that. But it's crazy to me that it's like fixable with just changing the settings in your steering wheel. So that's something that I'm always wondering when they're like, oh, just click this, this, and that, and it fixes the issue. I'm like, but how? How do you do that? But yeah, Max also was complaining that he had an issue, and Max complains a lot. Max has been complaining over and over and over again for the past few months, and I'm like, dude, shut up. Okay, report the issue to your team, but at the same time, shut up because he complains so much that it gets annoying. When I see the little Verstappen radio at the side, I'm like, here he comes, because if he's not complaining about the car, he's complaining about someone or about something that it's just not going in his way. And I'm like shut up. Actually, shut up, because he's always complaining. He looks like a child that keeps complaining over and over and over again. I'm like, like, actually, shut your mouth. Actually, yeah, I don't want to hear it because he keeps complaining so much. But yeah, I think it was at like one of the last few laps of the race. Carlos's engineer said something to him, and Carlos goes, I don't know what that means. And I was like, dude, if you don't know what that means, how are we supposed to know what that means? Even the commentators are like, what does it mean? Like, no one understood what that meant. And it was like so funny because like, if you don't know what it means, like, how am I supposed to know what it means, you know? So I was really confused with that, but it was so funny. And at the end, Max and Lando were fighting, and that didn't end very well because Lando overtook Max, but apparently it was off the track or something like that. I don't even know. Like, the FIA is actually extremely frustrating in these things when it comes to Max. But yeah, Lando got a penalty and ended up P4. But it's like during the race, at the beginning of the race, George did something that Max did as well. Okay? George got a penalty, Max didn't. And it's like, why? Aren't they driving in the same sport? Isn't aren't the rules the same for both of them? The FIA just doesn't penalize Max like they should. And it's extremely annoying to see that, if I'm being really honest. So, yeah, that's really frustrating. But we had a Ferrari one too. So, nothing else matters because we had a Ferrari one too. And it was so fun. I love Ferrari 1-2s. I love them. I just love them. And hearing the Italian anthem always, 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 always brings my spirits like really high because hearing the Fratelli d'Italia is the best thing ever. Like, it's just, no one can argue that the Italian anthem isn't the best anthem in F1, you know? Like, no one can argue that with me. And one last thing before we move on to Mexico. Um, we had probably the most ridiculous trophies in the story of this sport. Because a few weeks, maybe a week, don't even know, before the US Grand Prix, they posted being like, oh, these are the trophies for the US Grand Prix. They were like kind of little bears or something like that. I don't even know what they were. I was like, okay, they're a bit weird, but they're kind of cool, you know? Weird but cool. Some of the trophies are like that. I was like, okay, fine. We get to the podium. They give Charles a random ass trophy. And I'm like, that's not the bear trophy. I was confused, but I was filming because I usually film the podium. And I was just filming. And I was like, wait, but that's not the trophy that they said it would be. And I was like, okay, I'm confused. But then, after they give the trophy to the winner, they give the trophy to the winner constructor, which is like the Ferrari person or whatever the team is. And they give him a tire. One of the pole position trophies. And I was like, what is that? I was like, okay, maybe they went with that for the winning constructor. It would be like, okay, fine, I guess. But then they bring out another tire and give Carlos another tire and give Max a tire as well. And I was like, what is happening? What the actual fuck is happening? Why are they giving tires as trophies? I was really confused, and Carlos looked at it like he was absolutely disgusted by it, and he even let the trophy fall, and then the tire started to roll away from him. It was funny. It was so funny, but he was looking at it like, really? I just drove like hell for so many laps to get a tire? Like I just did a one lap and got pole position? He was so confused. And I'm like, how did they even have that many pole position trophies at the track? I'm still confused. It's been 2 weeks and I'm still confused. Like, why tire trophies? It was because of copyright that they didn't use the original trophies. But really, you couldn't pull something else other than trophies? Seems weird. Let me be honest. Seems a bit weird. But yeah. Then we go to Mexico. And again, very, very fun race. During FP1, we had Alex having a big crash. And I'm still confused with that crash. It's been a few days and I'm still confused because I wasn't watching FP1. I was at work. And then my friend texted me and she was like, oh, red flag during FP1. And I was like, what? So I went and put it on, and I was like, they like played the replay multiple times, and I'm like, I still haven't understood what happened, because he comes out of the corner, and then he makes contact with Ollie because Ollie was doing FP1, and then spins like a little ballerina, goes into the wall, basically destroys the car, and then the first thing that he says on the radio is, idiot. Like it was Ollie's fault. Sorry, Alex, I love you, but that wasn't Ollie's fault. Like, he was just in his little. Like, he wasn't even in the middle of the track. He was just vibing there. He was just probably, I think he was in an out lap. And Alex just came out and crashed into him. Didn't make too much damage, thank God, because that was Charles' car. And then calls him an idiot. I was like, sorry, Alex, but I think you're in the wrong here. I think. But I'm still confused with that accident, to be honest. But yeah. Then in FP2, we had another crash, which was George crashing. And it was a pretty big crash, but he was okay. But like, seeing the video, it's scary because like, he went into the wall pretty hard. Like, kind of scary, not gonna lie. But then we move on to quali, and again, few surprises. First, we had Oscar getting knocked out in Q1, which again, what? Like, kind of weird. Kind of, what do you mean? I was like, hi, what happened? I was so confused. And then we had Paris getting knocked out for his home race in Q1. Which is like, oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. There the race, he kind of was gaining some positions, like right from the beginning. He gained, I think, 5 position or something. He ended up out of the points anyway, and I think he's getting dropped. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I think Christian already mentioned that after the race that he might be replaced, and it's like, he wasn't replaced early. From what we know, from the rumors that we know, was that Liberty Media was like, hi, so you can't do that because the US Grand Prix is coming up and the Mexican Grand Prix is coming up, and that's a lot of money that we're gonna lose if it gets dropped. But now, the US Grand Prix is over, the Mexican Grand Prix is over. I think there's a chance that Paris might be dropped before the end of the season. We have 4 races left, but still, I think there's an option there, and if not, at least he will be dropped for the 2025 season. I'm still confused why they renewed his contract, because we've had 7 race winners this year. Perez is not one of them. He's in a Red Bull, yet he's not one of them. And it's like, that's intriguing, because what do you mean you're in a Red Bull and you still haven't won a race? You haven't even been close to winning a race this season. So I don't think Perez's future is very promising. So I guess we have to wait and see. But I don't think his future is very promising. And we had Carlos getting pole for the Mexican Grand Prix, which is so good. I was so happy. He did such an amazing lap. And I was like, yeah, we're going to have a Carlos win. And it's like a Ferrari win. I love Ferrari. And as much as Charles is my favorite driver and always will be, I love when Carlos wins. And then we got to race day, and Carlos lost in P1 at the beginning. And I was like, oh no. And then Yuki crashed in the first corner, as well as Alex. Pretty big crashes, but they were both okay, which is really good. And after the restart, Carlos pulled, let me tell you, one of the most amazing moves I've ever seen. It was so effortless that I was like, how did he just do that? Because Max didn't even have time to react. He literally just went like, "Excuse me," and overtook him. It was so good. Let me tell you, it was so fun to watch because like Max didn't even have time to react to it, and I love that. I love that. Absolutely love it. So yeah, then of course we had Max and Lando fighting because this is getting just a repeat every single weekend. Except this weekend it was a bit more serious because they were fighting and fighting and fighting, and then Max pushed Lando out of the forced Lando out of the track twice at two corners, and the FIA finally did their job correctly and gave him two 10-second penalties. And he stood there in the pits for 20 seconds. And it was really fun to watch, let me tell you. Because he finally got penalized for things he did. And yet, he complained about them. He did it, still complained when he got penalized. Like, he's so not used to getting penalized when doing things that he started complaining. Because, again, he only complains. It's like, dude, shut up. But yeah, they had a little fight, like, big fight. And Charles was like, thank you very much. Goodbye. And got to P2. And it was really good. And at some point, he was like 8 tenths behind Carlos, and Carlos like, oh, Charles getting too close, and Charles kind of like dropped down, and he stayed at like 1.5 for a while, but then he started dropping more and more and more, and he was like at 5 seconds at some point, and when he started to like go faster, not go faster, but like you know give just a little bit more pace. Carlos comes on the radio. He's like, "Oh, why are we fighting this hard?" Because he was comfortable in P1. And I was mad at Carlos for that because he has to understand that, okay, he was comfortable in P1, but Charles wasn't comfortable in P2, and Lando was getting closer and closer and closer to him. So I was kind of mad at Carlos for that because if he he had like not said that, Charles would have been close to him, and Lando wouldn't have gotten to Charles. So yeah, but Lando did get Charles, and Lando did get to P2 after all. And as much as I love Lando, I was sad for Charles because first it was really scary because he almost crashed during that little thing, because I think the wind changed as well, which didn't help during this whole situation. But he was like really, really, really close to crashing when Lando overtook him, and I was scared because okay, good thing we got a P3 instead of nothing. But yeah, then after the race ended, like Charles had already hugged Carlos and Lando, but when Charles was taking out his balaclava, is that how you say it? I think so. I might be saying that wrong, but I think so. Carlos kind of wanted to talk to him, and Charles just walked away. And Carlos looked at him like a sad little puppy with a confused face. And people were like, oh, why did he do that? And it's like, first, they had already hugged. Second of all, don't make something out of nothing. Like, it was nothing major, and I bet they're fine. But of course, Charles was a bit disappointed because he didn't get the P2 and another Ferrari won too, and he had to just stay in P3 instead of P2, you know? It's more points if you're in P2. It was going to be more fun if it was a Ferrari 1 too. So, he was kind of disappointed, and it's normal. It's okay. and people just make a big deal out of that. And it wasn't that deep. I did notice it when it happened, and I even texted my friend. I was like, "Did you see that?" And she was like, "Oh, I didn't." And I was like, I just know people are gonna take that and be like, "Why did he do that?" And like 5 minutes after, I was scrolling on TikTok, and of course, the video showed up with people like, "Why did he do that?" Like, I knew that was going to happen, but it wasn't that big of a deal in my opinion. So yeah, it was a very fun race, and actually, these two races were very fun. To be honest, this whole season has been really fun after Max stopped winning. And I said this probably 1,000 times, but if you told me a few months ago that we would have this much of a fun season, I would have laughed in your face because it's been so fun. I've been loving it. I've been like falling in love again with the sport, with not having the same person winning over and over again. And it's been really, really fun. And now we move on to Brazil. And again, Brazil always delivers. Last year, literally, the day turned into night from how much rain they had that literally no one could see anything. They had to turn on the lights during the day at the track. And yeah, it was a very fun race last year, I think. Actually, was it? No, Max won. Yeah. But oh well. Brazil is always a fun little track. So, yeah, I'll see you after the Brazilian Grand Prix. Bye.